So the next point is the questions. Okay, this model is called getting to know yourself and where you are, and you will see that it's called that way for a reason. Okay, it's mainly composed of the 15 questions that I told you about before, and so now is the time to get pen and paper. Make sure that you take note of the questions. Okay, let me get some pen and paper for myself as well. So the first question is writing how you feel today. Writing how you feel today. Okay, very important. You need to do a detailed description of how you are feeling today. Whatever your state of mind, writing about how you feel today. Okay? Take a few moments, write down that question. You can also stop the video so that I don't have to wait for you. It's up to you, so maybe we can do it that way, it would be faster. Now, the second question is, yes, here, writing how you felt at the happiest time of your life. Okay, writing how you felt at the happiest time of your life. Take a few seconds with that question, writing down how you felt at the happiest time of your life. The next thing is writing down all your thoughts associated with the current feeling. Okay? Writing down all the thoughts associated with the current feeling. I hope you have that one already. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, the fourth. Make a list of the reasons if you have ever thought about suicide. Okay, why you will want to die. I know it sounds pretty bad, but hey, that's what we are here for, to face the issues that we don't like to think about or to talk about, right? So make a list of all the reasons why you will prefer not to be in this world anymore, if that is your thing. Okay, if it's not, then not. But it's a good opportunity also to write down about all the things that you don't like about the world, all the things that you're not happy about. Now, the next thing is the total opposite. So I want you to write number 5 about all the reasons you have to continue living. Maybe you're in a state of mind in which you cannot see many of them, maybe not even one, but it's a good opportunity to see if there are any why you will want to do that. Reasons to continue living. Okay? Now, the next set of questions, those are 5 questions. The next set of questions, let's going to see now. Okay, so number 6. What are the obstacles preventing you from reaching your ideal state? If you're not happy, what are the obstacles that are preventing you from reaching a state of greater happiness in your life? Okay, whatever it is, people, places, jobs, anything. Obstacles that are preventing you from being at your best. I want you to write down some of them. Now the next thing, how will your environment and people you know react to the changes when you get to be at your best? So this question is about the environment. How will the people around you and your environment in general, your boss, your family, your partner, your children, will react when you reach a state of complete happiness, or when you have resolved the problems that you have, or when you are feeling much better about life or about yourself? Okay? What will happen with them? How will they feel? Will they sabotage your change in any way? Just write about that. How will your environment react when you have reached a really good state of mind? Okay, important question there. Okay. Another question there, let me see my notes. Okay, yes. 8. Is there any reason why you would like to stay in this state? Reason to continue living this way. Is there any particular reason that you have to continue living this way? Here you want to think about ways in which you may be sabotaging yourself, or just reasons that you don't feel that you're sabotaging yourself, but you find perfectly logical and perfectly acceptable reasons why you prefer to continue being in this state. Okay? Remember, it's very important to be totally honest with these questions. These questions you're answering in the privacy of your own home or wherever you are. Nobody has to know, but this is for you. So if you lie to yourself, there's not even point in doing this. So it's very important now at the beginning of the course that we know exactly where we are, and that's why this model is called Finding Out Where You Are. Okay? Because these questions are very important and you must answer them with total honesty. Okay, so the next question is about the word frustration. Are you frustrated about anything in your life? This is what you want to think about next. Okay? Write down all the things that you are frustrated about right now in your life. All the things that don't let you get to the place where you want to be. Anything that you think of when you think about the word frustration. Okay? Very important there. And then finally I want you to write about the events that led you to feel as you feel today. Okay? What events have led you to this state of mind? So 6, obstacles, environment, reasons to continue, frustration, and events. Okay? Very important that you go back in your mind and think now in this last question of this part about all the things that led you to this point in your life, about the events that have made you feel this way, if there are events that you can remember that made you feel this way. Okay, so make an effort there, go back in your mind, and if you remember, it is the time to write it down. Now the last set of questions are 6 questions, and I'll tell you the first one. Okay, write about the beginning of your current state of mind. When was the first time or the first thing that you noticed that wasn't right? What happened at the beginning? Whatever. I can't spell that word in your language. So, what happened at the beginning of your current state of mind? What was the start? Yes? What were the things that happened that made you feel this way? This is different to the events, because what I want you to focus more on this question is, what were the first things that started to go wrong? You see, the previous question is, what are the things that happened or the events that happened that led you here? This question is more about, when was the first time that you realized that something was wrong, and what made you think so? Okay, so write about the beginning of your depression if you're depressed. What were, let's make it easier, let's use the word start. When you started feeling this way, what made you feel that way? What were the first things that you noticed that things were not right, that you were not the same? Okay? Second question now. Do you have trouble sleeping? This question is only for the people that have trouble sleeping. And if you have problems sleeping, what are the thoughts that you have when you can't sleep? Okay? So if you have trouble sleeping, if you can't sleep, if you wake up too early in the morning, if you can't sleep when you go to sleep at night, what are the things that you're thinking about mainly? Are these repetitive things? Are they always around the pattern? Are they always about the same people? Are they all different every time? Are they imaginary things? Are they real things from the day, from the past, from the future? What is it? Write about what keeps you awake, what you are thinking when you can't sleep. if you can't sleep. Okay? Now the next thing. The next question is about guilt. Do you feel guilty about anything? Do you feel guilt for any reason? You want to think about that. When you think about the word guilt, what comes to your mind right away without thinking? What? That's very important. It's something that you want to write about as you answer this question. Now the next thing. What do you do the first thing? What is the first thing you do in the morning? First activities. I mean, what are the first things that you do in the morning, particularly in the, let's say in the first 2 hours of your day? What are the things that you do? Make a list, moment by moment. I wake up in the morning, I go drink a glass of water, I go to the toilet, I do whatever else. Then I come back, I have breakfast, I prepare my breakfast, I make breakfast, then I go somewhere else. What do you do in the first 2 hours of the day? Very, very important. And it's casting question, which is the next one. Okay, very easy as well. What do you do in the last 2 hours before sleeping? In the evening. What do you do in the last 2 hours before you go to sleep? You see, very important that you write that one down as well. What do you do the first 2 hours in the morning, and what do you do in the last 2 hours before you go to sleep? Remember that all these questions are important, and I'm going to comment them in the last part of the course. Okay, but it's very important that you write about this, that you give your answers to these questions, so that you can make the most out of the last part of this course. Okay, and now finally the sixth question. How do you get to this state of mind? This is more of a philosophical question. You already answered about the events. You already answered about the first things that you noticed. When you noticed first that something wasn't right, or that you were depressed, or you were not at your best, or whatever. And this question, how did you get to this state of mind, is about anything that comes to your mind that gives you clues on why you feel this way. Okay? Just let your mind flow, let your subconscious mind give you the answer, write without thinking much about this on this question. Okay? How did you get to this state of mind? It's an abstract general question for a reason. Okay? So the question is, how do you get to this state of mind? Okay, so let's move on. We've covered most of the questions. Now, I think it's actually all the questions. Let's check the notes. That's right, yes. And let's do the first little summary of the course. Okay, so what do you have to do regarding the questions? 1, write about your feelings. 2, write about the obstacles that you are finding, that you're facing in your life. And 3, write about the events that brought you to this state of mind that you're having today. Okay? Having said that, we can move on. So, next part of the course. Taking action. This is model number 3. Taking action, getting out of depression, and optimizing your life for happiness. Here is where I start to give you a lot of information so that you begin to know your mind a lot better than ever before. Okay? So first, let's talk about depression itself. Okay, so depression. There are 3 main sources of depression. Okay? 3 main sources of depression. Number 1 is depression that has as its root biochemical imbalance. It's a depression that has everything to do with your body and the workings, the inner workings of your body. Okay? It's a depression that has everything to do with hormones and how they work, with how the information travels in the systems in your body, and with the connection between your brain, the rest of the body, and the environment. Okay? Mainly, when we are talking about this cause of depression, we're talking about chemical imbalances in most cases. And in fact, for this type of depression, doctors are the best ones, the best people to help you with. If the depression that you're feeling has only organic causes. Okay, let's go to the next one. Number 2 is a depression that has at its root psychological problems. Okay, let's say for example that your parents were alcoholic, so you were raised in an environment in which you never knew what was going to come next. Let's say that because of the alcohol, your parent was very loving at one point and very harsh and physically abusive with you on the next day, and you never knew what you were going to get. Okay, that is one psychological issue that is strongly correlated with depression later in life, and also with higher anxiety levels and other problems. But it's very, very important to notice that if there's a depression, in that case, when clients come to me, I have to ask them a lot of questions, some of them like the ones that I asked you before in the previous model. And I do this in order to know what is the reason why they're not feeling at their best. Okay, is it purely an organic one? Is it purely a psychological reason why they feel this way? Imagine that you were abused in your childhood in any way. Imagine that you didn't get the love that you needed as a child. Imagine that you are in a country in which there are wars and you had to go to war very young. Okay, that sort of thing will create a trauma. Past emotional traumas are at the root of many of the depressive states that people can get in. Okay, that would be a depression that is only based on something psychological. Okay, it doesn't have almost anything to do with the body. You can see the effects on the body because your mind is not working as it should, but the problem doesn't come from the body. It doesn't come from the environment. It comes from the traumas, from the effect that the negative environment had on your psyche. Okay, so that's the second reason why you could be depressed. Purely psychological reasons. Past trauma usually is the main reason why you will enter this state of depression later in life when you had this kind of upbringing. Okay? The third reason why you may be depressed, imagine that you have perfect health, you do plenty of exercise, you are perfectly happy about everything. So organically, biologically, psychologically, physically, you feel perfectly well. Okay, you're healthy, you're good, you're strong, you eat well, you sleep well, everything's perfect. But now imagine also that you had also a really good childhood, everything's perfect, you have good relationships, you as a grown up, you go to work, you have a good job, you enjoy yourself, you are also very psychologically healthy. And yet, you come to a hypnotherapist like me because you're depressed. What's going on there? You see, part of my job is like being like a private investigator. Okay, I have to find out exactly where the problem is and what kind of problem is in order to apply the right techniques to help that person to feel better. So in that case, if everything is fine organically, biologically, which is the first thing that we look at, if everything is fine at the psychological level, then there's something else. What is it? Usually, this is the point. The problem has to do with everyday habits, and particularly about the workings of your subconscious mind. Most probably, you are doing something on your everyday routines that is having a negative impact at the subconscious level of your mind, because you don't understand how this works. You don't know that you're doing actually this, and because the mind, particularly the subconscious mind, learns by repetition and association, you're doing this thing day after day after day, will eventually put you in a state of depression. Okay, a couple of clients come to mind. One was a mixed hybrid case, because I remember that this lady came to me for a phobia, and we did absolutely all the questionnaires that I had, and we checked everything, and there seemed to be no particular reason why this lady would have this particular phobia. Okay, it was a phobia to drive a car on a particular part of the road, only on that particular part of the road. And we looked at so many things. Okay, and actually what turned out happening was that it was a combination of low glucose levels and bad everyday habits in general. It was a person that wouldn't eat for many hours, and as we are going to be looking at later, that can have a massive impact on your glucose levels. Glucose is the food of your brain basically, and it turned out that at one point that she had a very massive drop in glucose levels. Most probably what happened is that she was driving that particular piece of the road, that particular stretch of the road, when she had this massive drop in glucose levels. So it was something organic that generated a state of mind that turned in fact into a phobia. And because of anticipatory anxiety, we're not going to talk about that much right now, not to complicate things, but she started to dread the time that she would have to take the car to go particularly to that road, to drive on that stretch of the road, and things escalated from there. So that's an example of everyday habits. What do I mean? Okay, her habits made her do something that wasn't healthy, affected her at an organic level, and that in turn affected mine. Okay, so it was a combination. And that takes me to the next point. In most depressive states, and this is very important for you to remember, okay, if you want to understand why you are depressed or why someone that you know is depressed, in most cases, in my experience with nearly 1,000 clients, a depressive state is due to a combination of these factors. And that's why this course covers so much stuff, because it's not only about your childhood, how you were raised, the kind of background that you had, but it's also about your everyday habits today. And it's also about your general psychological state, but it's also about your physiology, how you feel physically, and what your health habits are, or healthy or unhealthy habits are. Okay, so remember, because this is important, and I'll tell you why. Depression is usually a combination of these three factors: everyday habits, physiological factors, and psychological factors. Why is this important? Because when we go to a doctor, they will tend to concentrate only on the physical side of things. When we go to a psychotherapist or someone in the mental health sector, they will tend to concentrate a little bit too much on the mental side of things, on the psychology side of things, on the potential, on the potential events that led the person to feel that way. And they may not look at the physical side of things, or not so much at the mind-body connection there. You see, and everything is important in my experience. I have read a lot about this, I had my training, I had my experience with clients. I'm a very curious person, I'm always asking all sorts of questions to everyone. I'm always reading, I'm always learning. And in my experience, I think that this is something very important that I want you to take away from this course. That is like really very important piece of information. Okay, because when we have a hammer, every problem seems to be a nail, and we want to hammer it down, you see. So when you go to a doctor, the doctor will look at everything physical about you, will prescribe you some pills or anything else, and it won't look at the other parts, the psychological part of your problem. You see, we're going to look at that in a moment. So next point. Okay, so check with your doctor first. Talking about doctors, this is the next point. You see, there are several reasons why you may feel down on your mood that have to do with your physiology, that have to do with what you do, what you've done in the past, and how these things, how these actions or this exposure to certain environments have affected your body and your brain as an organic physical entity. Okay? I'll tell you some of the most common. Hormones issues, okay? Thyroid issues, problems, low levels of certain hormones at certain points in your life. they can have a definite and very important effect on how you feel mentally. So this is the first thing that you have to look at. Okay, make sure that you talk with your doctor, make sure that you get good answers from them, good information. Make sure that you go there armed with the right questions so that you ask the right questions. And these are some of the things that I'm going to give you hints on so that you can ask your doctor. Okay, number one, hormones levels. Let's write it down. Oh, this is not a pen. Here. So number one, hormone. Make sure that your hormonal balance is top-notch, perfect. Everything is working perfectly well in your body. Okay? Next thing. How are your glucose levels? Talk about glucose levels with your doctor. Okay? You want to learn about something called hypoglycemia, and particularly about the symptoms of hypoglycemia. Very interesting stuff. Go and have a look. Do your research. We're going to be covering a lot of ground, but we cannot go in too much detail into each one of the things that I tell you about, because otherwise we will be 500 hours training here, and that's not the point. Okay? Next thing that you want to check, particularly if you're a male, testosterone levels. Testosterone levels. Okay? Make sure that they're at the right level, because it's also a common problem that if your testosterone levels are too low, you may feel weak, you may feel you don't have enough ambition, enough drive, enough motivation to get up from bed in the morning. Check your testosterone levels. Okay? Now, for the ladies, hopefully not for the guys, this one. Do you know what is postpartum depression? Okay, so if you have had a child in the last 2 years, you should be checking for this. Okay, hopefully we're talking about females here. So make sure that you know what postpartum depression is. Make sure you understand it. Make sure you ask your doctor about it. Okay, because that has to do with your hormonal balance as well, once again. So it's very important that you get the right information about this, because something that you thought that was purely psychological can have a lot to do with your hormonal balance there. So once again, your doctor can help you with that, hopefully. And finally, if for whatever reason, imagine that you're coming from war and there were bombs exploding around you, or imagine that you had an accident, or you hit your head in some way, or you do contact sports. I've done martial arts for quite some time. I love it. I'm very, very careful with not hitting my head too much. But if for whatever reason you have hit your head, you may have little problems there. Okay? I'm not going to try to explain it exactly, but this is one of the things that you must check with your doctor. Okay, we have very sophisticated scans today that can scan your brain in 3 dimensions in color. It's amazing stuff, and your doctors or neurologists can help you with this. So make sure that if you have been exposed to any kind of head trauma, you make sure that there's no little injury lesson there. Okay, because that can also affect your mood, because it can affect with the way in which the different parts of the different regions of your brain connect to each other. Okay, how the neurons fire, and lots of interesting stuff that we don't have time to go over, but you should check. Okay, so if you've been exposed to head trauma for any reason, make sure that you check with your doctor about that as well. Okay, let's get rid of that one. Hormones, glucose levels, testosterone, postpartum depression, and potential head trauma that may be making you feel worse than you could possibly feel. Okay, now the next thing that we want to do, first, as we say, we go in order here. So we were talking about the organic, physiological reasons why you may be depressed. Now let's talk about the psychological reasons, and just a little bit an overview, and let's talk about how to choose a therapist. Okay, very important. So imagine that you discover that for whatever reason, or you have the suspicion that the main reason why you're depressed has to do with psychological trauma. Okay, what should you do? Definitely go and seek therapy. Why? Because it will speed up the recovery process. You see, we therapists are in the world. God put us here for a reason, and the reason is that we have the tools and techniques, and we specialize. Okay, different therapies, different types of therapy. We all have different flavors of doing what we do, but in general, what we have is a very strong drive to help people, and we have gone through a lot of training in order to get knowledgeable about the tools that we can use to help people with their problems. Okay, it's not just talk. There's a lot behind it. Yes, so definitely seek therapy. It will speed up tenfold, depending on the therapy, the process and the length of time that you take.